Welcome to Andre's Insight, where clarity meets curiosity. Today, we're really digging into the world of remote work. You, our listener, have shared some really fascinating articles and reports, and, well, our mission here is to unpack all of that. We want to pull out the key insights you need about this whole way of working. Without making it overly complicated, we'll touch on productivity, work-life balance, of course, but also that bigger relationship between companies and remote employees.
Yeah, and it's really clear from the get-go, isn't it? And remote work isn't some niche thing anymore. It feels like a pretty significant, probably permanent fixture in the working world now. What may started because of, well, global events a few years back. It's really evolved. Now it's a conscious strategy for a lot of
Uh-huh.
companies. They're seeing real pluses.
Pluses like,
Well, happier employees, for one. Potentially better work-life integration, maybe. But also practical stuff like saving on office rent and infrastructure costs. That's a big one.
and the numbers really seem to back that up. I saw one report from last year. It showed a huge jump in fully remote workers, like 64% up from 49% the year before. That's quite a leap.
It is. And apparently most people prefer it that way, something like 71% wanting fully remote.
So what's driving that now? It can't just be the initial push anymore.
No, exactly. That initial situation was maybe the accelerator, but now companies are thinking strategically. They're using remote work as a tool to attract talent, keep people motivated, and hold on to them.
Ah, so it's becoming a recruitment tactic almost.
Definitely. Announcing you have work from anywhere policy.
Yeah.
That's a real competitive advantage now in the talent market.
Okay, this is where it gets super interesting for me. You kind of think working from home, more distractions, maybe less gets done.
Right. That's the common assumption. But the sources we looked at suggest maybe the opposite is true.
Really? How so?
Well, on average, remote employees are reporting more focused work hours per day, something like 7.8 hours compared to 6.3 for office workers.
Wow, that's a noticeable difference. So the home environment can be better for concentration.
Seems so. If you set it up right, it can be really conducive to that deep work idea. Really focusing hard on one thing, fewer interruptions. Your brain can just lock in.
So for anyone listening who's working remotely, the advice seems to be create a dedicated workspace, like physically separate work from home life.
That's fundamental, yeah. It's a mental cue. And also communicate your availability. Let your team know when you're head down, when you're available. That protects that focus time.
Makes sense. Avoid multitasking too, I guess.
Oh, definitely. Especially for remote teams. Trying to juggle too many things just fragments your attention. When people can focus and the team culture supports communication that isn't demanding an instant reply, productivity can really soar.
Yeah, that's a good point. Communication that doesn't demand instant replies. Tell me more about that. It sounds crucial for remote teams.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's not about ignoring people, obviously, but it's about using tools smartly, respecting that people might be in different time zones or just have different peak focus times.
So, asynchronous tools. Things like shared documents, project management platforms, team chat where you don't expect an immediate answer.
Exactly, those kinds of things. They're incredibly valuable, especially when teams are spread out geographically. It allows for more thoughtful responses, fits different schedules.
Okay, but let's talk about the flip side. All this flexibility working from home, there's a catch, isn't there? I noticed nearly half of remote workers admit their work spills into evenings, weekends. That sounds risky.
That's a huge point, a really critical one. The very flexibility that everyone loves. It can blur those lines. You quickly check email after dinner, and suddenly it's an hour later.
Yeah, I can see that happening easily.
So setting really firm boundaries is vital, like having a strict end time to your workday. Otherwise, you risk that slow creep of work into personal time and eventually burnout.
Definitely something to watch out for. Okay, so if we're not in the same physical space, how do we handle collaboration and just staying connected? It feels like teams must have had to figure out ways beyond just endless emails.
Oh, for sure. They've had to get more intentional about it. Email and chat apps are still common, obviously, but there's a move towards more structure.
Yeah.
Those asynchronous tools we talked about play a big part, especially for distributed teams.
And it's not just having the tools, it's how you use them, right?
Mhm.
Setting clear rules.
Absolutely. Things like agreeing on roughly how quickly people should respond. That helps manage expectations. Or using features like threaded conversations in chat apps so discussions don't get lost. Little things that make a big difference.
Keeps things organized when you can't just lean over a desk.
Exactly. Minimizes confusion, prevents delays, and actually, it's interesting. Despite the distance, most remote workers do feel connected.
Oh, really? I might have guessed the opposite. Like maybe 75% or so report feeling connected.
Yeah, significant majority, which is quite positive, I think.
So how are they staying connected mainly? Is it those chat apps?
That seems to be the primary way, yeah. Followed by email and then virtual meeting. It just shows how important those digital platforms are for building that team feeling, even when you're apart.
Let's go back to that idea of flexibility being a double-edged sword. Having control over your schedule sounds amazing on paper.
And it often is.
Yeah.
It lets people work when they're most productive, gives them a sense of control. That can really boost the employee
But
experience.
like we said, it can slide into working all the time. That creeping extension. I saw figures suggesting a lot of remote workers check emails outside work hours, even on weekends or holidays.
Yeah, that's the danger zone. It highlights how much self-discipline remote work requires. The autonomy is great, it's empowering, but the responsibility is on you, the individual, to draw those lines.
To protect yourself from overwork and burnout, basically.
Precisely. You have to actively manage it.
And all of this must have a real impact on, well, our mental state too, right? The social side, the psychological effects.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big area of concern. Loneliness, isolation. These are frequently reported challenges for remote workers. Feeling less connected to colleagues can definitely take a toll.
And I guess you miss out on those spontaneous chats, right? The coffee machine conversations, the quick hallway sync-ups.
Exactly. Those informal interactions, they seem small, but they do build team cohesion, camaraderie. It's harder to replicate online.
Plus, the constant digital communication. Can that lead to fatigue? Always being on?
Yes, that's a real thing. Digital communication fatigue. It's draining, that pressure to be constantly available and responsive.
And it's pretty sobering. Some research suggests remote and hybrid work might even correlate with higher rates of anxiety and depression compared to being fully in the office.
It is sobering. It really underlines why we need to proactively think about well-being in these setups. It's not automatic.
So organizations and individuals both need to be conscious of this and find ways to support mental health.
Definitely. You can't just set people up remotely and expect everything to be fine. You need support structures.
Okay, shifting focus a bit. What about monitoring? I hear more companies are tracking online activity for remote workers. That sounds tricky.
It is tricky,
Yeah.
and it's a growing trend, yes. Quite a few companies are doing some kind of monitoring, but a big issue that comes up in the data is communication, or lack thereof.
Meaning employees don't always know they're being monitored or how.
Right. A lot of monitored workers say they weren't given clear info about what's being tracked, and that understandably raises privacy concerns. It can really damage trust.
And I suppose if people feel watched, they might act differently. I saw something about workers admitting to non-work stuff or
Yeah.
even using software to trick the monitoring.
Yeah, that happens. It points to that tension. But what's interesting is the contrast. Many successful remote managers, they focus on trust, on outcomes, not on constantly watching activity levels.
So judging people by the work they produce, not how many minutes they look busy online.
Exactly. Productivity measured by completed projects, quality of deliverables, that tends to foster a much healthier, more trusting environment.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, what about the middle ground, the hybrid model? That seems popular.
Very popular. Combining remote work with some time in the office. Most workers actually say they'd prefer a hybrid setup.
You get the best of both worlds, maybe. Flexibility plus some FaceTime.
That's the idea. The flexibility of home, but also chances for in-person collaboration, team bonding, that office buzz sometimes.
But hybrid must have its own challenges too, like coordinating who's and when, making sure remote people don't feel left out.
Oh, definitely. Resource coordination is one thing. And yes, avoiding that us versus them feeling between in-office and remote folks. Making hybrid work well requires real intentionality, careful planning around communication, tech, and nurturing that inclusive culture.
Intentionality seems to be the key word for a lot of this, doesn't it?
It really is. You can't just stumble into successful remote or hybrid work. You have to design it.
So, are companies actively trying to fix the downsides of remote work? What strategies are they using?
Yeah, they're definitely trying things. Providing the right tech for collaboration is baseline, obviously. Offering flexible hours helps. And importantly, creating opportunities for people to connect in person sometimes. team meetups, social
To
events.
combat that isolation we talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also things like virtual team building activities, encouraging informal chat channels,
Hmm.
trying to replicate some of that social glue.
And promoting digital wellness, encouraging breaks, setting boundaries.
Crucial. Encouraging people to switch off properly is key to preventing burnout. And from a management side, clear expectations, regular check-ins, not micromanaging, but connecting and focusing on trust and results.
Right. Now, one last area. The digital nomad lifestyle. Sounds glamorous, working from a beach.
The Instagram version, yes.
Yeah.
It's appealing, no doubt. But it comes with its own pretty intense set of challenges.
Like what? It seems like it would be lonely, maybe? Unstable?
It can be, yes. Loneliness is a big one. Lack of stability, too. The stress of constantly adjusting to new places, new routines, or lack of routines. Maintaining healthy habits, a consistent work setup, a sense of community. That's much harder when you're always moving.
And I guess the pressure to enjoy the paradise location might clash with actually needing to knuckle down and work.
Absolutely. That disconnect between the perceived lifestyle and the reality of deadlines can be isolating in itself. It shows that while remote work offers flexibility, the extreme version, digital nomading, needs a very specific personality and a lot of deliberate effort to manage.
Okay, so pulling all this together, it's a really complex picture, isn't it? Remote work has these clear benefits, flexibility, maybe more focus, but also real challenges, communication, connection, that work-life blend.
It's definitely multifaceted. And success, whether you're an individual worker or a company, seems to boil down to that word again, intentionality. Being intentional about how you communicate, intentional about building connection, intentional about setting and respecting boundaries.
And it feels like this is still evolving. Companies and employees are still figuring it out, adapting.
Absolutely. This is an ongoing experiment in many ways. We'll keep seeing new strategies, new refinements, as everyone learns how to make it work best.
So for you listening, what does this all mean? Well, whether you're fully remote, hybrid, or in an office, understanding these dynamics, the pros, the cons, the nuances, can help you make smarter choices about how you work best, and maybe help you advocate for what you need to thrive.
Yeah, the sources we've touched on today really give a snapshot of this huge conversation about the future of work. And it seems clear that future involves a lot more flexibility, a lot more remote collaboration for many people.
To think about these insights, consider your own preferences, what works for you, what doesn't, and maybe ask yourself, what's the one thing that stands out to you as most important for making remote work successful? That could be your own starting point for thinking more about this.